And we're live. Hey guys. So yeah, I wasn't going to go live today because I was supposed to be in another program, and somehow or another they got moved to tomorrow. So anyway, I'm here today. I talked about scent and allergies the other day, but I really wanted to get further into specifically essential oils, kind of, sort of. Well, I started off with essential oils and food sensitivities. That's the reason why it's titled, and I will definitely get into food sensitivity. It's just that I have to be really frank with you and say that the reason, really what brought me to do this is driving in the car the other day, I keep hearing this commercial for EPI, which stands for exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. And when they describe the symptoms, I mean, basically anybody could say that they have it. And when you look into it, basically it means that your exocrine glands or your pancreas is not producing digestive enzymes. And hey, look, I'm sorry. I mean, on my phone, I want to say this because I'm doing Instagram on my phone and I'm doing Facebook on my computer, and Facebook looks like it looks like I'm in a tomb. It's because the lighting. I don't have very good lighting. It's not sunny at all. It's very gray today, and so yeah. Anyway, and I feel really uncomfortable. Okay. Anyway, so that said, it means that the digestive enzymes aren't being produced. Well, this is very fascinating to me because we've created yet another condition, and quite frankly, it bugs me. It just really, really bothers me because exocrine function is dependent upon parasympathetic activity. It's that simple. Parasympathetic activity is the activity that regulates, well, it's part of the autonomic nervous system. So by all rights, the way we digest our food, and I've been saying this for a very long time, and for those of you who do not know me or are not familiar with me, I do have a background in digestion. I have taught digestive wellness. So that's the reason why I am talking about this right now, because food sensitivities do in fact play right into this EPI thing that I keep hearing about on the radio. And again, it's just it's almost a tool for self-diagnosis to say, yeah, I have it, and it includes gas, bloating, all the normal digestive disruptions, but now we've classified it as EPI. And again, exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. Long story short, when we're born, we are not born producing hydrochloric acid, nor are we born producing digestive enzymes, because we've been dependent upon our mother and our mother's system. And this is where breastfeeding comes in, because the breastfeeding helps to initialize the enzyme production. That said, we are born exocrine pancreatic insufficient. We are born without enzymes, or the production of enzymes. So this is ridiculous, and this is where food sensitivities come into, because what happens is, if we're not producing the enzymes, we're no longer breaking down macronutrients. Okay, now if we're not breaking down macronutrients, that means the immune system is going to become activated if this continues to go on for a long time. The reason this happens is because the stress system has kicked into high gear. All right, so stress system in high gear, and that was activated by the autonomic nervous system. There is such a thing as a stress system. And all of this is very important. Essential oils actually do influence activity and support and enhance activity, but we have to understand, in my opinion, we have to understand what the heck is actually going on. So there is such a thing called a stress system. It alters the chemistry of the body in order to protect us from whatever threat or trigger is happening. And it raises histamine levels. I mean, the chemistry is, all the initializing chemistry for any health issue is the same, and begins with histamine. And this is the reason why we have to eat, we see people who can no longer tolerate high histamine foods because they have a lot of histamine building up in their system. This is a sign of an chronically activated stress system. Okay, this is, in which case, when that is happening, the sympathetic nervous system is raising your blood pressure, increasing respiration. It's the sympathetic nervous is kicking in. Therefore, we no longer produce hydrochloric acid. We're no longer producing adequate amounts of digestive enzymes. So we have larger particles of food circulating throughout the system, hence leaky gut. This is where weight gain comes in. This is where we end up with dysbiosis, aka abnormal or imbalanced microflora in the gut. By the way, the microflora in the mouth influences the gut flora and vice versa. So really, really focusing on the biome of the body is really important. And so it's really important. And this is the reason why I actually just finished revising a post, and I put it on Medium on the 7 steps to improving digestion. And in that, I emphasize the fact that over half of the United States population is living with some form of digestive disruption. This includes food. Although it's not listed as such, it is in fact food sensitivities are in fact a sign of digestive issues. This include and what's interesting is I've seen a number of websites that will just list things like lactose, gluten, and so forth. If we can't digest or metabolize, or should I say rather assimilate gluten, it's because the epigenome has deactivated the gene that's designed to metabolize it. Same thing can be said for casein. So the body is actually equipped to assimilate these proteins. And again, they're proteins. So if we're not breaking them down, it's a sign that the sympathetic nervous system is now shutting down the digestive system. This is not a defective mechanism. This is in fact a survival mechanism, because technically when the body's being threatened, it's no longer in thriving. It's not about thriving, it's about surviving. Okay. I have to divert from this for just a second, and bear with me. And if you know me at all, you know that I get excited about stuff like this. The fact is that the stress system is not a bad system. Okay, it's just labeled as such, but stress is kind of like when you put tension on a rope, right? That's just stress. It's not a bad thing, and if if it has enough tension on it, it doesn't necessarily snap. Okay, so tension is not a bad thing. It is just, it just means that changes are indicated. So as I said, when the body's in survival mode, consuming food is not part of it. That's thriving. Okay, that's for thriving. Surviving involves being able to run away from a threat, being able to hunt if you need to, being able to get what we need, and that includes mates. That includes reproduction. Okay, so so when we look at the stress system and the chemistry that is activated, that includes an increase in reproductive hormones. So there's an initiation that's happening there, and especially in the female body. Gosh, this camera is so bad on Facebook. I'm really sorry if you guys are watching this replay. Anyway. So that's stress. Stress is a mode of survival, and reproduction is for survival. If we didn't reproduce, the species wouldn't survive. So let's just be real right there. That said, when the body is in survival mode, the digestive system is no longer working. It's not working it's not optimally working, and it's no longer producing, like I said, the hydrochloric acid or the digestive enzymes, and this is where the increase in food sensitivities become obvious. What those foods are depend on your individual genome. There's no telling which ones. Yes, we do have suggestions for different types of diets that will help to alleviate the symptoms, but it's not dealing with the core issue, which is an active stress system. And this is happening 24/7. And it's happening 24/7. Well, aside from the fact that we've had, the year 2020 and the divisiveness between people that have been friends, just the uproar of emotions, that alone, the economic breakdown, then there's just everyday life. Okay, so there's the mental, there's emotional. Clearly there's going to be some physical, whether that's reproduction, menstrual cycle, what have you. These are all forms of stress to the system. And then there's the environmental, which includes anything that's coming in that we introduced to the body. So now that I've addressed that more or less, food sensitivities themselves are directly related to the lack of enzyme production. And again, this begins in the mouth. And as I said, really focusing on the microbiome is essential. I mean, we're talking about a full body biome. We're not just talking about the gut. So if you're actually working on So one of the suggestions I tell people is to get off your probiotics. Unless you're actually consuming high amounts of foods with antibiotics in them, or you're taking antibiotics yourself, or you use a lot of antibacterial products, your best bet is to start taking coconut oil every single day, by mouth, raw, not cooked, because it actually helps to regulate gut flora. And if you can use it in your mouth for oil pulling. And if you're not familiar with that, you can look that up. I can actually put a link here for you as well. But oil pulling really does a miraculous job. It's nearly 50% lauric acid, which combats, deactivates the bacteria in the mouth, the bad bacteria, if you will. It regulates the population of bacteria, is how I want to say that. It also helps so it reduces your chances of gum disease, and because we can see how it regulates the biome in the mouth, eating it raw, like I said, the coconut oil will actually help regulate the gut biome as well. And this is essential to being able to slow down this stress response. So coconut oil is you're better off doing that combined with a hydrochloric acid supplement instead of your probiotics. Probiotics are just, especially if you have eczema and psoriasis or anything like that, taking probiotics is actually making it worse. Probiotics actually increase natural killer cells in the immune system, which when they test psoriasis lesions, they're finding high levels of natural killer cells in those lesions. So taking probiotics actually accentuates the problem. So, what do we do about this biome and this digestive system? Well, again, it irritated me that I hear this EPI all the time. And when I did my research into this, again, hydrochloric acid is a huge issue because acetylcholine is necessary to be, acetylcholine activates the sympathetic nervous system, but it also is used to regulate digestion. It's required for the production of hydrochloric acid, and the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system happens when acetylcholine is now being used throughout the digestive system and the rest of the body. So with that ease, the body's now producing hydrochloric acid, and it's also producing your digestive enzymes. So what can we do about that? Sure, you can take medications. I mean, my background's pharmacology. I'm not going to come against the pharmaceutical industry, but if that's what you want to do, then by all means do your medications, but don't worry about taking essential oils at that point, because the essential oils, that if you're going to choose medications, then you're going to have to pay closer attention to what kind of oils you're using. But you can in fact support digestion remarkably well with essential oils, because some of them will influence acetylcholine activity throughout the system, which now enhances the production of both digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid, which is going to begin to reduce your food sensitivities. Another really cool thing about oils is that even though they're labeled antimicrobial, antiviral, antibacterial, antibiotic, right? That's not what they are. They help regulate viral and bacterial colonies. They essentially, okay, so how do I explain this? Various essential oils contain constituents that are known to communicate through the acetylation and the phosphorylation pathways, which are the pathways that the DNA relies on to know what's going on in the outside world. This is the reason why I say it's not a mind-body connection, and it's not a brain-body connection. It is a DNA a mind DNA connection, rather. It's a mind DNA, because we start to regulate our mind and we start to pay attention to how we're feeling and what we're thinking, we can now begin to communicate and send more messages of everything's okay. Because the longer we remained stressed, just in our mind and our emotions, we maintain that stress system like I was talking about. And in that mode, we're sending signals without realizing it to the DNA that there's a threat. And as long as there's a threat to the system, the DNA is going to signal the production of oxidative stress, which is going to lead to inflammation. So, as I said, when it comes to oils and using them for antimicrobial, like maintaining gut flora, they do not kill bacteria and virus. They help regulate them, because some of them contain constituents that in fact communicate with the DNA, because they can communicate via the acetylation and the phosphorylation pathways, which are in fact part of the DNA in these microbes. They can begin to de-escalate the stress response in that microbe. So, it's been demonstrated that oils will make a big difference in the body when it comes to helping to regulate our biome and protect our biome and maintain the homeostasis of the biome. So, oils that would be good for that. I'll give you the constituents, and then, I think what I'll do is I'll put a document together too, maybe, and I'll list it over there in Revolutionary Aromatherapy. But okay, so that would include things like black pepper, because it has gosh, this phone just keeps darkening down. So black pepper contains beta-carophylline, and beta-carophylline is one of the constituents that in fact communicates with DNA, or this via the phosphorylation pathway. Laurel leaf contains both methyl eugenol and, well, at least has methyl eugenol in it. Holy basil would be another one, because it has both methyl eugenol, beta-carophylline, and eugenol. So holy basil is really very good, but you got to be careful with holy basil, because it's an adaptogen, and if you're naturally cranked, it will either drop you really quickly, or it'll really aggravate your system. So you got to be careful with the holy basil. I'm going to make notes here of what I'm saying. And black pepper is the other one I said. Caraway seed has been found to actually help with gut flora. Now, by no means do you need to take any of this by mouth. You can take a bath with them. You can rub them over your abdomen. You can do it several times a day. Many oils contain constituents that increase tissue permeability. It's a naturally built-in mechanism within the plant that allows for the absorption. And this is another reason how oils are very beneficial for helping to assimilate nutrition into the cells, because they increase tissue permeability. Scientists recognize this. A good example of that is menthol. That's a scary one, you guys, because menthol it increases tissue permeability. Which means and it increases tissue permeability in the lungs, specifically. And when we have so many types of respiratory issues going on, and I see all of these mentholated products out there, it frightens me, because what we're doing is we're in fact increasing tissue permeability rapidly. So you want to use use it mindfully. You don't need to be using all these mentholated products. So and if you want to ask me questions about that, by all means do so. You can contact me. We can have a fun, in fact, I'll happy to offer you a free consultation if that's what you like. And we can talk further about this. But again, a lot of the oils contain constituents that increase tissue permeability, and science does recognize this, and they are mimicking nature and putting it into natural care products to increase uptake. I was looking at some very high-priced CBD ointments the other day, and I say high-priced because I was surprised where I found them, but they were actually really out. I mean, we're talking close to $60 for like a tube that big. And it says CBD, but when you look at the label, it's not just CBD. It has a lot of ingredients in there that would also be known to help relieve pain and so forth. And you know what? Every single one that I've looked at, and I'm talking about, I've probably now have scanned about 15 to 20 different types of companies with CBD products for on the skin. And each one of them, you guys, each one of them contains menthol. I kid you not, they all contain menthol. So that's going to add your cooling sensation, right? It's going to help make it, it's going to feel good to the skin, and it's going to increase the uptake. So so I'm just saying that companies recognize this. That was an odd segue. So that's really comes down to, you don't need to ingest them. And especially if you take medications, you do not want to consume oils by mouth. It has nothing to do with their purity. I've said this before, and I'm going to keep saying it again. You drink plenty of drinks that have lots of chemicals in them. Chemicals you probably aren't even aware that are there. So don't worry about adulterated oils. It's not about whether it's an adulterated oil or not. The purer, the more authentic the oil, the more apt you are to have counter adverse reactions with medications. So there's no need to take them by mouth. Rub them on your stomach, take a bath in them. Dill is another good one, because another reason why we have a lot of microbiome issues is, again, okay, so it's like we talked about bacteria and virus, but there's also high levels of yeast. And when you're not breaking down carbohydrates and you have properly, it doesn't make any difference what kind of carbohydrate. It doesn't have to be just bread. It can be, if you eat a lot of food, not food. God, I'm looking at my screen. Fruit. If you eat a lot of fruit, holy crap, that was funny. If you eat a lot of fruit, you're taking in a lot of sugars. You're taking in a lot of carbs, and if your digestion is jacked, because your stress system is jacked, you are in fact going to have higher levels of glucose in the system that's not being assimilated properly. So therefore, you would want to add dill, because what's going to happen is you're going to build up yeast in the system. And this doesn't necessarily mean it's going to turn into thrush or a vaginal yeast infection, or if you might end up with athlete's foot. You could have signs of that, but yeast will grow in all tissues, so it's not just about in certain locations. And if you use dill, okay, so we're going to have a little blending right now. If you use dill, you're going to want to make sure you mix it with laurel leaf. And again, if you're using medications, let me know. You can have a free consult, and I can kind of guide you a little bit further on this. But the reason for that is because you want to have you want the system to flush it. Because if you just use dill with other oils and don't include something that's going to move the lymph system, because laurel leaf will actually move the lymph, then what's going to happen is the yeast will come out through your skin, and you're going to develop a rash. And then the next thing I'm going to hear, if you end up contacting me, is you're going to tell me, look, you told me to use dill, and now I have a rash. I'm allergic to it. You're not allergic to it. You're detoxing, and it didn't come. Your body was trying to clear it. It couldn't eliminate it as fast as it was clearing the yeast. And yeast does build up when we have food sensitivities and other digestive issues. So if you use dill, you want to include it with something like laurel leaf, because the laurel leaf will flush it and help move it out of the kidneys. And in that case, you want to back it up with goldenrod, because the goldenrod will protect the kidneys as you release the yeast from your system. So, and goldenrod's very good for the liver, so that's another really good one for the digestive system. And then I'm going to keep making notes here. And then the other one I was going to mention is, in fact, bergamot. Bergamot doesn't work directly on the digestive system, but it does support Krebs cycle, which is where we assimilate carbohydrates and proteins. So the Krebs cycle is important to cellular energy, and bergamot will help with that. This could be a second step as opposed to just taking the first step with oils. But bergamot is in there. You could use lemongrass potentially instead of dill for the yeast, but again, if you're taking an anti-diabetic or antidepressant, you can't use lemongrass. And dill you can only use for so long because it's high in carbone, which will transfer, help to transfer methyl groups, which is really important in epigenetics. At the same time, it's a ketone and becomes neurotoxic after a while. So you can only use, I would not use dill. If you're going to use it every day, I would avoid using it for longer than 3 to 4 weeks, is how I would say that. And then, I mentioned, there's going to be, and so like I said, the beta-caryophyllene is in the black pepper. And it's also in the holy basil. Another one, the other constituent that I really like to, and I mentioned also the methyl eugenol and the eugenol. Those are really good for supporting again, the holy basil is really good for that. For supporting acetylation and phosphorylation pathway. God, why is this doing that? The final constituent is called alpha-pinene. And alpha-pinene is in a number of oils, but the ones that are specific to digestion, or in this case with moving fluids, would be the two that I would recommend, would either be rosemary verbone or cypress. Because cypress supports the fluids in the system and it supports the hormonal system. Rosemary verbone supports the liver as well as the nitric oxide synthase, which is essential for immune and digestive function. And it also contains the alpha-pinene. Now, that said, if you're working with somebody or you know somebody who has either Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or takes some sort of anticholinerase inhibitor, which is something they administer for Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, you cannot mix it with oils that contain alpha-pinene, because alpha-pinene is in fact a anticholinerase inhibitor. And that would be I would refer to that as duplicating the mechanism of action, and you don't know what sort of interactions that you're going to have with that. So avoid any kind of oil with people who have Parkinson's or Alzheimer's and are taking meds. And if you have any questions about what medications they're taking, please let me know, because as I said, my background does include pharmacology, and so I'm happy to consult with you on that. Again, a free consultation, I give you an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. And so that's what I have for that. I'm happy to talk with you about that, because especially if you're taking medications or somebody you're taking medications, you really want to use caution when you're mixing these oils up with them. But it is possible to support, and like I said, food sensitivities are in fact as a result of exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, which is a natural occurrence. I say you, it's good to see you. But EPI is not a disease. It is a fact that the body is overly stressed and you're no longer producing enzymes. And by the way, black pepper supports that. All of those, like I said, any oil that contains alpha-pinene, black pepper supports the pancreas. Anything that will support the production of digestive enzymes and increase that production and begin to reduce those symptoms. And like that. I mean, we're not talking like this is going to take months. You will notice benefits right away, and you will also notice, you may have to stick with it for a while, because we don't exactly live in a utopia at this point. So you're going to want to stick with it, but it's definitely possible to reduce sensitivities and improve digestion just with oils alone. I promise you. And of course, a few of those nutritional suggestions that I offered up. But again, if medications are in fact something that you're taking, or is that person you're helping is taking, get a little bit more guidance around that. And I'm certainly happy to do that. You can go to my website and just sign up for a free consultation, and that's totally cool. The other thing I wanted to point out is there is a blending class coming up on the 30th of this month, and that is real-time blending. Like I was just talking about blending oils just now. That's a real time where I will walk you through. We're doing it on Zoom. That way we can actually see one another, we can talk to one another, and you can bring me whatever case you have, and I will help you formulate right then and there. And so this is good for massage therapists, anybody who does body work, if you're an acupuncturist, chiropractor, if you use oils. This is good for all of that, because personalization is important, because there's nothing that works for every one body. We all are, our epigenomes are unique. They're like our fingerprints. So you want to make sure that the oils that you're selecting for the body are specific to that individual. So that said, I had fun doing this today, and I welcome any questions, please. I welcome any of your questions, and I appreciate you watching. And Nikki, it's always good to see you so much. And I will see you guys next week. Take care.